Okay, in this episode we are going to learn about how to initialize a two-dimensional array. You can initialize a two-dimensional array at the time of its declaration. So here I am going to show you how to initialize a two-dimensional array at the time of its initialization. So here I declare a two-dimensional array x of first dimension, the first dimension representing the number of rows and second dimension representing the number of columns. Okay, so here I am going to initialize some value to this two-dimensional array. So first I have to specify the rows. So for representing rows you have to put another two curly brackets and specify the first row. So 3 5 is the first row, and now put a comma, and now you have to specify the second row. Now the second row is 4 and 7. Okay, this is how we initialize a two-dimensional array at the time of its declaration. So the inner brackets representing the rows. So 3 5 is the first row and 4 7 is the second row. 3 and 4 are the elements on the first column, 5 and 7 are the elements available in the second column. Okay, so you can avoid the inner brackets. So before we have to check this is valid or not. Yeah, the compilation is success. This is a valid initialization. Okay, you can avoid the inner brackets. The inner brackets are optional. This is also a valid statement, but it affects the program readability. It is difficult to identify the rows in this two-dimensional array, so this will affect the program readability. So this is also a valid one, we can check. So the compilation is success. This is also a valid statement. Okay, and another thing, I remove the dimension of the rows. Now in this declaration there is only dimension for column. I remove the dimension of the rows. So what will happen if we compile the program? I compile the program, there is no error, compilation is success. So the number of rows are optional. By declaring a two-dimensional array, the number of rows is optional. You can avoid it, but the number of columns is essential. Suppose here I represent the number of rows, but I remove the number of columns. If we compile the program, of course you will get some error. Okay, here we got some error because the number of rows are optional, but the number of columns is essential. So you have to specify the number of rows, number of columns. This is also not a valid initialization. If we compile the program, this is also not a valid statement. So at the time of declaration of an array, you can avoid the number of rows, but the number of columns is essential. So this is also valid. Okay, this is how we initialize a two-dimensional array at the time of its declaration.